It's going to be interesting to read all of your comments throughout the show. Which bread will end up winning this incredible battle? Now, helping us whip up nothing but the best in bread magic is our resident chef. You know, my favorite guy, none other than Chef Jay. Welcome back, Chef.
Thank you, Pali. You know, I just smile when I come to work. I have the best job in the world, so I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, well, welcome back. Happy Tuesday. And helping us make nothing but bread excellence, you know, taking bread into the top tier is Fritz. Now, Fritz, Schoon, welcome to Afternoon Express. I think it is such a privilege and honour to have you on the show. Now, you're about to just walk us through different techniques, different ways of making bread.
Yeah, so I think, you know, basically, and Jay, firstly, thank you, and thank you, Jay. It's lovely to see you again and to see you prosper in life. You make me very proud. And as you know, I mean, bread is something that I feel very strong about. You know, not just the making of the process, which induces humility and, like, patience, but the sharing of bread, breaking bread, building relationship, and that's what fuels my fire for bread. And, you know, it's very daunting. People are intimidated by bread. It's a hard thing to really get down. And what we're known for at Schoon is very long, slow fermentation, natural processes, you know, slowing it down, very wet doughs, but not everybody has that amount of time. So I'm looking at what you've prepared for me today, Jay, and this is your recipe, am I right?
Yes, this is my recipe, so go easy on me. And yeah, you basically here to show us the way to do it.
Yeah, and so what I've picked up of what you've shown me here today is I can clearly see that you've got two different types of flours. Commercially milled with, you know, roller mills. It's very white, very fine, very consistent. On the other side, we've got a slightly darker flour here, and that means it's been milled with stone. So what you get is you'll get the germ out of that product. You'll get a very delicious flour. So I'm going to use this one today, if you don't mind.
Right. So, Jay, just as I want to call you Bready Schoon. Just as you are putting those elements together, you have decided to make what kind of bread here today, Jay?
So this is just a standard white bread, Pali. This is actually an adaptation of my mom's recipe. And this bread dough can be literally used in so many ways, which I think is a fantastic, you know, sort of recipe to have under your arsenal. You can be prepared to make whatever, you know, the occasion, you know, is. And I think that's why it's a fantastic recipe.
Lovely. Now we can continue putting this together, Fritz. I know you've decided on going, or rather Jay also has added stone flour into the mix.
Yep.
Could we make, or rather use alternative store-bought flour? And why is stone flour just so good for this recipe?
Well, I wouldn't say as much for the recipe as it is for the body. And stone ground flour is now commercially available across the country in many, many retailer stores. So it's not that hard to come by anymore. I would only suggest that for the flavor and for the gut microbes that it feeds, you know, so it's very, very good for the body. Anyway, so what I've seen, Jay, what I love about your recipe, you know, it's a very quick. I can see, I'm not going to apply any of my normal practices to this dough. You've added honey, which is not only a great flavor in a bread, but it also, that sweetness induces the yeast to rise a little bit quicker. So if you're tight on time, that's the way to go.
And we've used instant yeast in this recipe, Fritz. Now, we've got a couple of other versions of yeast. Do you want to just talk us through some of the different options that we've got over there and how you would use that in other recipes?
Yeah, gladly. So that's always very interesting. You know, food technologists in the world have really made it easy for the home baker to, you know, to get going. Dried yeast or instant yeast, as you've seen there, that's very convenient. Yeah, I mean, it activates as soon as you get moisture in contact with it. But secondly, it's very consistent. What you can see here is we've got some fresh yeast blocks. Now, this is not really available to the regular consumer. It's normally for like big, larger scale bakeries, but I love fresh yeast. It's a little bit more active, it's live, it's a little bit more natural in my perspective. And then finally, obviously, your sourdough starter. Wild yeast, you've created an environment for them to flourish in with a mixture of flour and water, and they feed and they live there, and they live in your bread, so it's fantastic. I love it.
I think you should actually grab that sourdough starter and just give it a smell. And that's literally just natural yeast from the environment that you're cultivating in your own home. So this is also very doable for anyone at home. There's many recipes online that you can find to create your own. And I think that's also another alternative for people who might have a resistance to using commercial yeast.
Absolutely.
It already smells a little, that fermentation of it. It kind of smells like yabon mkomboti back at home when they make mkomboti. That is exactly that smell that I'm picking up. But as we are continuing to make and learn in this masterclass as we do make bread, you might be wondering, Mzansi, what is this blue glove I'm wearing all about? So let's get Dumi into this conversation. So just so that she can not only give us her tidbits with bread, but also just kind of comment on this incredible blue glove initiative, ne?
I think that's the one thing, besides the fact that we're focusing on you know, breads and stuff, which has to do with your body and looking after yourself as well. Just that initiative and just shining a light on something so important, something so simple that most people don't know is there, but something so important for us to be aware of.
Absolutely. Now, as Dumi has mentioned, this is all about stroke awareness. Now, not only is the Blue Glove Initiative an advocate for stroke, but being an able-bodied person, the use of one's hands is habitual and instinctive. So it will also act as a reminder to what stroke survivors have to cope with every single day. Now, as we do move on from a very important initiative, back to our masterclass. Now, Fritz, we always speak about the kneading process here on Afternoon Express. Is that what we're going to be doing in this application?
So what I've done is I've brought it together with my hands. I've brought it together using my hands, making sure that there's no lumps involved. Okay, this is critical to the process. Now, normally, again, at Schoon, what we do is we let the gluten development, which gives it the structure, which gives it the volume, we let that develop over time. But in this case, we don't have time. We want to speed up the process. So in this case, I'll take the dough out and I'll work it a little bit on this floured surface to build that gluten development a little bit faster. Now, obviously, we've got great commercial mixers nowadays that you can pop it into, get that gluten whipped up. Of course, unfortunately, you do compromise a little bit on the flavor because time is flavor with bread. But the point is we've got guests coming over shortly and we want to feed them. So I'm going to work a little bit, just this dough, and you can see it's sticky enough, so it's going to be nice and delicious. But
okay, well, I think as we do just continue to knead this bread, we're going to continue to make bread magic, so we're going to pick up on the masterclass shortly. If you want to get your hands on this recipe, simply head over to afternoonexpress.co.za. Now, as I've mentioned, stay tuned to see how Fritz uses the dough we've just made to make two different kinds of bread.